Actually, Joanna, there's more people on the list than are in class. You know that, right? You have the list. Okay. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about emptiness and dependent origination, we glimpse how it's possible, even inevitable. And so I invite you to grow this wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with this intention strong, we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, 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 teach us that, teach me that, show me that, help me become that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the pure world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do when sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. All right. So last class, I struggled through that discussion of the investigation of how results happen, where we believe results, what makes results happen. And we talked about that proof that said we deny that results that do or don't exist can come from causes that do or don't make them, or something just like really weird. And Geshe-la explained it, and I don't know, recalling that class, it's like, why is this so complicated? And then in his review, his next class, his review of that last class, he puts it in this really succinct way. And it's like, why didn't he say it this succinct way the first time? But there was a reason, right? It was so complicated, and then a reason why it got easier. So I always feel compelled to do it the same way instead of just say, forget that class, I'll give it the easy way, because I need to hear it the hard way again and again. So in the review, he says, we studied where things come from in terms of causes. We studied the fact that they have no nature, and then the fact that dependent origination gives them their nature. And then we're looking at the results. So it's one thing to say, how do causes make results come about? It's another thing to ask, how do results come about from causes? It's a different way of looking at our belief in why things happen to us. So always in these investigations, what it's pointing out is helping us understand how we misunderstand how results happen, to show us our misunderstanding, really more than to show us what's a accurate understanding. So we're thinking about results, meaning things that happen to us. So consider things which are results. They don't happen in an ultimate way. And we investigate that from 4 different directions. But then we have to stop and say, well, what do they mean by ultimate? Do they mean ultimately things don't happen at all? Which, in one way, if we're thinking wrongly about things that happen, it's true they don't happen at all. They don't happen at all in the way that we think. Do they not happen? No, they happen. If a car impacts another car and makes a dent in the first car, that really happened. Did it happen ultimately? Depends on what you mean by ultimately, right? So ultimately can mean, does it happen at all? Ultimately can also mean, does it happen for real? But also slippery. Yes, it's a material thing. Yes, there wasn't a dent in the car before, and now there is. Yes, it happened really. But did it happen the way we believe it happened? This car hit that car, made the dent. Did the dent come from the impact? So, our minds go, well, the dent wouldn't have been there if the impact didn't happen. So the dent did arise based on something else. But then when we investigate, well, where did that impact actually happen? Or at what moment in time did that impact actually happen? Or, yes, the dent happened because the one car hit the other car. But why did that car hit the other car? Oh, the driver wasn't paying attention. So the driver not paying attention is the cause. That's what that's what made the dent happen, the driver not paying attention. Yeah, but the driver wasn't paying attention because their child in the back seat was coughing so bad, that they had to look. Yeah, okay, so the coughing child made the dent. Yeah, but the child was coughing because they got the cold because they went to a new school. Well, then it was the new school that made the dent. Do you see what made the dent arrive? And we go, what's up with that? Who cares? The dent's there. Now what do we do? But if we're going to react properly to the cause, to what made the dent happen, we want to get it right. Who to blame? Yeah? Do we blame the car? No, that's silly. We blame the driver. Well, that's silly. The driver didn't bonk the car bonked the other car. Blame the car. Do you see how ridiculous? Our worldview is ridiculous. So, how do we investigate what makes a result happen? So this one goes, results which exist at the time of their causes don't happen in an ultimate way. Right, because they don't exist. But also, we tend to think when a result has happened, there's something in our mind that somehow believes that result, some aspect of that result was already involved somehow. The words don't really convey it, but when we check it out, it's like I am kind of thinking that some aspect of the result is already there so that the rest of it can happen, which can't be true, right? When we really investigate. So that one's not so hard. No, the result is not there when the cause is there. Second one, results which do not exist at the time of their causes do not come about in an ultimate way either. And it's like, wait, yes, they do. That one seems, why are we saying that one's not true? Third, results which both do and don't exist at the time of their causes don't come about in an ultimate way. Right, because a result that does exist at the time of its cause already exists. It doesn't need a cause. And a result that doesn't exist hasn't come about. So that one's obvious. And then a result which happens that's neither existing nor not existing doesn't come about in an ultimate way because there's no such thing as a result that neither exists nor doesn't exist. That just completes the 4 investigations. Is there any other way that a result can come from a cause? Either the result's already there and the cause activates it, or the result isn't there and the cause causes it, or both, or neither. Do you see? So when we say a result that doesn't exist comes about from a cause that makes it exist, that doesn't happen in an ultimate way, meaning it doesn't happen in the way that we believe it does, which we believe that the cause exists in and of itself, and then the result, which doesn't exist at all, suddenly, sort of inexplicably, the cause stops being the cause and now there's the result. And we might even think that the thing that was the cause turns into the result. But it's like, no, that doesn't work because the car that hits the other car that makes the bump, the dent, the car that hit and made the dent doesn't become the dent. It made the dent. And the cause of the dent is still there if we think it's the car. Well, no, it's not the car, it was the impact. But even the impact's not happening anymore and the dent is there. So it's not that the impact became the dent, it caused the dent. Do you see? So, but still, jumping to the punchline, when we are investigating these syllogisms from highest middle way point of view, ultimately, for something to exist ultimately means to exist independent of the experiencer's forced projected results of their ripening karma. So something to exist ultimately would be something that exists independent of our karma ripening. What does karma ripening mean? The ripening result of some imprint we put in our mind by way of how we saw ourselves, perceived ourselves, behave towards other before. So for any result to happen ultimately without being a projected result of the experiencer of that result is impossible. And that's what they mean by not exist ultimately. So when we say a result happens independence upon its causes, we can still say that result happening independence upon its cause that still doesn't exist ultimately, because a result coming from its cause doesn't happen without it being a projected result of the experiencer of it. So even as we're just thinking of a condition of a result coming from a cause, we are having a projection, a series of projections ripening. Results come from causes. So yes, the oak tree comes from an acorn that gets the right sunshine, water, soil protection. And all of that is ultimately dependent upon the projection of any being who perceives that oak tree that came from an acorn with water, soil, and protection. Do you see? An oak tree that comes from an acorn independent of someone's projection does not happen. It would be saying what oak tree is there if absolutely no conscious being is aware of it. And that doesn't that make our minds go, wait, yeah, but, you know, our world existed long before there was any conscious being. Whatever the conscious being was that appeared in the ocean, right? The first one, there was a place for it to appear. How could that exist if there's nobody experiencing it? If it's true that all existence is a result of projections, right? It pushes our envelope of what we understand to be true. Poof. Who was perceiving the earth before there was the first conscious being on it? Was there an earth before the first conscious being came on it? How would you know whether there was one or not? Remember the pen sitting on the table and no beings there? What's there then? So really the answer, there was no earth until there was a conscious being on earth, isn't accurate. It is what was there. Can't say. Undifferentiated potentiality, right? I don't know that. That's not even quite correct either. So what makes things happen? How do things happen? That's what results are, things that happen. They come from causes, you're right. Sometimes they don't seem to have any cause at all, but that's impossible. They have to have a cause. Maybe sometimes it seems like they have both causes and no causes. I don't know. But none of it happens independent of projections ripening. Why do projections ripen? Why do projections happen? Right? Same logic. Do they happen by themselves? No, they have to have a cause. Does the cause turn into the result, or does it push a result? Or how does a karmic seed get over the threshold into ripening into result? That's also projection happening. The bottom line, of course, is if we want results to happen, we need to plant the seeds for those results to happen. If we want our results that happen to be pleasant, we want to plant seeds for pleasantness to happen. When something that happens that's unpleasant, no need to blame the car or the driver or their inattention or the coughing child or the cold they got. No need to blame any of that because the real cause that made the karma ripening was something my own last past being did. Okay, I regret. This is rotten. Let's fix it moving forward, says the accountants. How I'm going to react to that happening plants the new seed. I've burned off the bad seed, whatever it was. Let's plant a new kind one. How do I know what to do? I have my vows, right? It's coming. So, do you see? The purpose of that syllogism is to remind us when something happens, I think it happens because of the thing that happened just before. And it's true that there's a thing that happens just before that seems to make the result. But in fact, what makes the thing that happens the moment before make the result is my karma ripening, my past deeds. So it does appear that you reach, hold the knob, turn it and pull opens the door, because our projection is such that it does that. It's not that we open doors just by staring at them when they have a knob that needs to be turned. We do have to turn the knob. But having to do so is part of the projection ripening. Things happen by way of projections. So anytime in highest way, it says, not ultimately, think independent of my projection making me see it that way. And you've got the punchline. Right? So next time, when Geshe-la's asking a question like this for $100, not independent of my projections forced on me by behavior I planted in my mind from right? You get it. It really is like the bottom line of all of ACI, not independent of ripening results from my past behavior, which is why Geshe-la always says the basis of every existing thing is kindness, because existence itself is a good ripening. It's not obvious. It's like we get, all right, we get lost my train of thought. So it's hard to penetrate the words into the meaning. And Master Shantideva says, if you're still struggling, ask for blessings from the Lama, right? The one knows. Just keep asking them, please help me understand. Please help me understand. Please bless my mind. Please bless my mind. So before we sit down to do our final exam, if your final exam is going to take you an hour to do, give yourself an hour and a half and spend a half hour asking that holy being, please help me do this final exam. Please tell me the answers. Please bless my mind to understand this stuff better. Try it. See what happens. Then do your final exam. So towards the end of this chapter 9, which is the perfection of wisdom, which we learned is not about how to see emptiness directly. It's about how to apply our reasoning to come to understand what's meant by emptiness and dependent origination, and pointing out that to struggle to understand emptiness without also studying how things do appear, we would be studying just one side of the understanding, right? Emptiness alone is not the wisdom. The fact that nothing has any nature of its own is not enough for us to go, oh, then I need to change my behavior. It's the explanation for how and why our behavior matters, because there is always an appearance side of something. There is always the emptiness of that appearance side. And so our understanding, we want our understanding to grasp how those two things are mutually dependent, how they arise together, how to think one, you know, the other, how you're not talking about two different things that come together. You're talking about, I don't even want to say one thing. We're talking about the explanation of how anything is anything, its identity, its qualities, its function, all of that. Not just the other, but of course, talking about our own me factor in every ripening. So Master Shantideva has gone through all of this. And in the last couple of verses of that chapter, he reveals the ramification of the aha that comes as our comprehension goes deeper. So after describing all this about emptiness and dependent origination, it seems to me like, anyway, he says, when is it then that I will be able to put an end to suffering with a rain of every goodness of all that has kept me well? From the clouds of my good deeds to those who are caught in the fire of suffering, when is it I will, with respect, accumulate masses of merit with the wisdom that has no focus? When is it I will teach emptiness to all those devastated by their tendency to focus? So, seems a little cryptic, but what he's saying is, like, when will it be such that I can use the way I've trained myself to behave towards others because of my growing wisdom? When will I be able to use that to help stop all the suffering of all those other beings? When is it that I will be able to give my goodness that's sustaining me? Like, when can I share it? Who can I give it to? What I want to give them is this understanding of emptiness and dependent origination, this word focus. When is it I will accumulate masses of merit with the wisdom that has no focus? Means accumulating his masses of goodness because he's able to interact with his others with the emptiness of the three spheres, wisdom in his mind. No focus means no focus on things being self-existent. When is it I will teach emptiness to those devastated by their tendency to focus, meaning to still be focusing on things and self as self-existent, not being results of past deeds? He's saying, after all of this, when am I going to be able to be the one that can be blessing others to get it such that they will change their own behavior so they can stop their own suffering? When will I really get to use this? He's making this transition, or not transition, he's making this connection between our growing wisdom and our growing compassion and love. In his wisdom chapter, his conclusion is, oh, my heart breaks for anybody who doesn't understand this. I want to fix it for them. If I could just reach into your heart and turn the dial, turn off your belief in self-existence, I would do it in a heartbeat, he's saying to his audience. It's like, just get this. It will change your life. And it's like, if we could, we would, right? As the audience, like, please just pour it into me and change me. And it could happen, happens to some people, but not ultimately, not independent of that being's ripening result of some past deeds. Okay, so we want to talk again about compassion and love. Dampa, love. Ningje, Lord of Stones, meaning compassion. What's the difference between love and compassion? And I remember when I first heard this, really clear distinction between those two. I'd never thought of it before. I kind of thought of those two as not synonymous, but vaguely different. But this tradition makes it really clear. And for this distinction, Geshe-la went to Jetsun Kapa's Lamrim Chenmo for this phrase, Dewa Dong Tre Du Ki Jampa, which is the explanation of love, Jampa, Dong, and Dunyel Dong Drel Du Ki Ningje. So Dewa Dong Tre means to encounter happiness. And Duki means wants, the want of that. So love wants to encounter happiness. And it's like, wait a minute. Who wants to encounter happiness in this love? And it doesn't say. And we might think, oh, love only means you want the other to encounter happiness, which that's what we say. Love is, I want you to be happy. But we can take it a little deeper and say, love means my happiness I want to encounter the happiness that perceives your happiness. Right? Love is my happiness is your happiness. I see you happy and that makes me happy. And that's love. That means if I'm not seeing you happy, I want you to be happy because that's where my happiness comes from. We're not saying that love means I don't get to be happy. Like I'm all about making somebody else happy. It's that is my happiness, to see you happy. But it has to do with giving and receiving happiness. Now, whether happiness has to do with pleasure or not, that's a long story. But then Ningje, compassion, dunya dang dral du ki Ningje. Dunya dang dral means freedom from suffering. So compassion is this want of freedom from suffering. So who's suffering? Who's freedom from suffering? Right? With compassion, we say, oh, I have compassion when I see somebody else suffering, and it hurts my heart to see them suffering. So compassion is, I wish that their suffering could stop. And we've learned that it's a big leap for us to even have compassion for someone that we don't necessarily care about, right? Someone we already love. When something goes wrong, we care. At some point, we want to help. at some point we understand how to help, how we think we can help in worldly ways. At some point we recognize, well, whether those worldly ways help or not depends on their karma, depends on my karma. Ultimately, the way I help is to become omniscient so that I can really know what worldly way would help them or how it would help. So these different levels that we turn on fairly easily towards someone that we already love, already care about. But then someone who we don't care about, it takes a little more effort to have that same sense of caring about their suffering, because our human tendency is to maybe think something awful like they deserve it or whatever. So we think, oh, compassion is about the other person, stopping that other being's suffering. But just like with the love that we bring, our emotion comes as well. It's a suffering to see another person suffering. And then we don't want to suffer. And so we avoid, thinking that's how we avoid. But that isn't compassion for them or for us, to just avoid. So in the same way that we were saying, well, my love extends, my own happiness increases as I enjoy and contribute to the happiness of others. My compassion for me also increases with my understanding, because I add the component of any suffering I see in another has the component of my seeds ripening. So to have compassion for them is to have compassion for myself as well. And then with that depth of understanding of compassion, we have a deeper understanding of how we help others, both worldly ways and karma and emptiness ways. So then we have regular compassion, just to pay attention, to care enough to pay attention to someone. And then we have great compassion, Ningje Chenpo, Mahakaruna in Sanskrit. And we had learned before that great compassion is when our compassion is such that we want to actually do something to help the person. And now Master Shantideva in the commentary, Gyaltsab J, is pointing out there are actually various levels of this great compassion. Holy great compassion, we learned, is the compassion in the mind of an omniscient being. So we're not going to talk about that. Omniscient beings still have compassion. Great compassion has these different levels. But first, we want to recognize that in our actions towards another, when we see suffering, what comes first? Love or compassion? Like in a given situation, I already said somebody we love, our compassion comes up pretty easily when they're suffering because we care so much about them. And someone that we don't have a relationship with, if we're not yet at the point where we love everybody regardless, then we don't care so much about the suffering that we see in them. But then suppose we see, some homeless person and they really seem like they're suffering. It catches our attention enough that, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I wish that that suffering could go away. I wish they could have a little bit of ease in their life. Then compassion turned on a little bit of love. Whereas with our loved ones, the love turns on the compassion. But in either case, somebody you love or somebody you don't know, if they're suffering badly, can you give them something that will give them happiness, even if it was their favorite thing, and bring them any happiness? If you had a child who's burning up with fever, and they've been wanting a, new little matchbook car, would you go get them a new little matchbook car to make them happy when they have 103 fever? No, they're not going to pay any attention to it. What you do is do what you need to do to get their fever to come down so they feel better. And once they feel better, then, right, you do whatever you do to bring them a little bit of happiness. So in action, we care enough to act on our compassion, but we act on the compassion before we act on the love. And a great debate would be, yes, but your love will increase when you see their suffering because your care for them is increasing. So you can't say that you only act from your compassion. The two go hand in hand. All of it is pertinent to growing our bodhicitta, our wish, what we mean by our bodhicitta, what we feel by our bodhicitta, our wish to bring all beings to their total enlightenment, requires that we care about everyone. And that's love. And it requires that we're willing to witness their suffering and want to do something about it. Then that's compassion. It's inside our bodhicitta wish. All right. So Master Shantideva, by putting these two lines about his anguish, about not yet being able to just impart the wisdom to others, he's pointing out how, as our wisdom grows, our compassion and love also grow. And if they're not, it means our wisdom's not growing. We're not getting the connection between the no-self nature of everything and the appearing nature of everything, how that reveals the power of our behavior towards others. When those click in, karma, emptiness, oh, my behavior. The behavior that clicks in is compassion and love. That's what he's pointing out. So it helps us to look, at the end of your emptiness meditation, are you coming out feeling like you want to be more kind? Or are you coming out feeling like, yeah, I got it a little better? Are you coming out frustrated? I'm nowhere close. And whatever that reaction is, gives us a hint as to what to work on off cushion time to help other people. Other people frustrated, trying to learn something new, let's find somebody. Some little small child frustrated, not able to tie their shoes yet. Here, let me help you learn to tie your shoe. That little bit, right? You don't have to be teaching karma and emptiness to everybody. Recognize that you've taught people things, right? Especially parents. You have a lot of good seeds. Okay, so where am I? So we get the definition of great compassion. That uncontrived state of mind, which no matter what suffering being it may focus upon, feels an uncontrollable wish to free them from their pain with exactly the same intensity of love that a mother feels for her only child. So there's some special love of a mother for a only child, meaning the intensity of that feeling of care for that being. They're so important. To have that intensity of feeling of compassion towards even the tiny little moth that just got caught by the bird to feed its babies. Oh, that moth. And it's like, oh man, that would be so painful to have that kind of compassion for all the suffering there is in my world. Master Shanti Deva, that's not possible. And it is possible. And it does seem painful. And imagine your Buddha, you, who perceives emptiness and appearing reality in all three times for all beings. Your mind, your projections force you to see all those existing conscious beings as pure, and you are aware of the ones whose karmas are forcing them to see themselves as not pure, and so are suffering. And you're seeing, experiencing how unnecessary their suffering is because it's all born of this big mistake of believing things are in them from them instead of results of that being's own behavior. And so seeing that being reacting to their pain in a way where they might as well be hammering their own toe with a hammer and crying about why things hurt. Just put down the hammer, Sarani. Poor Buddha. Do they feel suffering? No, they have the compassion like a mother's, with the intensity of the love of a mother for her only child. Like, I think of those Buddhas aware of me, and it's like they must be just smacking their heads against the brick wall. Sarani, would you just get it? Would you just get it? If I could pour it into you, I would. If I could rip that stuff out of you, I would. Would you just like, come on? And it's like, oh, if I could, I would. But it's that kind of sense. So if we say, oh, it's too hard to feel that much compassion for others, and instead say, no, I'm willing to feel that much compassion for others, even if it seems like I can't do anything. I don't have the capacity to actually act. Just to be willing to feel, just to be willing to wish that I could grow my wisdom big enough to be able to stop that suffering someday. That changes it. That is an act of compassion. And then as we've learned, we can always tonglen, either at the moment or later on. There really is never a situation that we can't do something because we're breathing and we can tonglen. But the willingness to let ourselves feel that compassion and not be able to fix it is a big step. And compassion is a bittersweet emotion, but it's a virtue, not but, and it's a virtue. What the definition of great compassion here says is when that state of compassion arises uncontrived. You see, you witness a suffering being and it's there, not work through the steps. Spontaneous. It comes about as a result of our growing wisdom. Okay. But imagine what our world would be like if at least every human had this sense of knowing where things came from and trying to apply kinder behavior, just trying, even not always successful, but just trying. And then imagine what it could be like if even the animal realm understood that. Like that rocks my mental framework to think, what if every carnivore becomes an herbivore? Could that really work? Like, but it's great to fantasize about these things. So how does this kind of compassion become a spontaneous, uncontrived state of mind? It requires that deep awareness of the empty nature of that object of our compassion, the empty nature of ourselves, the empty nature of the feeling of compassion, those three spheres, and the empty nature of what we think can happen that will stop their suffering, the empty nature of our reaction to the situation, how we want to react to the situation. The better we understand emptiness, the less we blame the usual factors that we blame for the experience that we're having. So if we see someone suffering and it makes us feel badly about their suffering, and if we investigate it more deeply, we see that what we really feel more badly about is feeling inadequate in our inability to really help them. Then it's like we recognize, wait, this feeling that I'm calling compassion is really my feeling inadequate, and it's a negative feeling, but that feeling doesn't have to arise from seeing somebody else's suffering because I understand emptiness. I can say this bad feeling is actually good feeling because it's going to urge me to do tonglen on them, or it's going to urge me to look at them and smile, at least to acknowledge that I see that they're hurting, even if I can't stop and actually do something tangible. Our understanding of the emptiness of our feeling that makes me resistant can help me move into that and not be resistant, because I don't have to react badly to that feeling when I recognize that it's simply a feeling, a sensation feeling, and I don't have to act on it in the usual way. So same for the emptiness of them. It doesn't mean, oh, they're not really there, but to recognize that other being who's suffering is empty, that has two parts to it, right? One understanding is whatever their suffering that they are experiencing, which I can't actually know, that's a result of their karmic seeds ripening. And the suffering that I see in them, because they are empty of self-nature, anything I perceive is my results ripening, me seeing them suffering in that way. So therefore, my behavior is my past behavior is the cause of this projection that makes me see them suffering. So now, whose karma can I work on? Only mine. Does that mean I ignore them? No. Does that mean I go to that actively suffering being and say, look, your suffering is really coming from your past behavior. The suffering I see in you is coming from my past behavior, so I'm going to work on myself, and you work on yourself, and that's how we'll stop your suffering, okay? You know, what's the suffering person probably going to say to you? Something really rude that, says, don't call me, I'll call you. Unless they've said to you, I'm suffering so badly. Nothing seems to work for me. What's really going on? Can you help me? Then maybe we have the opportunity. Then maybe if their suffering is because they're so terribly hungry, we can say, okay, let me bring you a meal and we'll sit down and we'll talk. Try to relieve their active suffering in a way that gives them enough relief and space to hear the explanation, but not until their suffering is relieved to some extent, and not until they're open to receiving a deeper explanation. So, but for our seeds, what do? We do try to bring them some worldly relief. We've witnessed their suffering. We've burned off those seeds. We're willing to do something, try something worldly, even as we know ultimately that worldly thing I do to try to help them may or may not help. If it helps temporarily, like you give them a meal, they're not hungry for about 4 hours. They're just going to get hungry again. But that's not a reason not to give them the meal. But as we give them the meal, to work on our own seeds, we include our understanding. I'm just giving them something temporary to give them some relief because they're empty. I'm empty. That meal is empty. I can be seeing myself offering to an angel who's pretending. I can see myself offering to a being who's really suffering, but I'm doing so to plant seeds in my mind, to have a connection with them, to be able to help them ultimately someday. Right? Any level that we can hold our mind on as we're doing a worldly activity to help with their temporary suffering relief in a way that will help grow our own seeds towards our state of omniscience. It requires interacting with other beings to plant the seeds in our mind that will grow into that perception of ourselves. So we can't just say, until I'm a Buddha, I'm not going to try to help anybody because anything I do will just fail. It's true that anything we do in worldly ways fails in the end, because what we do doesn't bring them the result that comes next. So as our wisdom grows, so grows our compassion and love. And the way we know it's growing is because we find ourselves less reactive to our own circumstances that used to cause us to get grumpy and upset. Those same apparent circumstances now arise more compassion. No, you're in a hurry, you're doing your shopping, it's a crowded place. Somebody steps in front of you, gets in your way, and we get this right, emotional growl, Geshe-la called it. And that's enough to plant another seed for another circumstance, for another emotional growl. And as our wisdom grows, the sense is they step in front, and instead of an emotional growl, it's all right, burn that one off. Right? It's actually sort of a inner giggle. Okay, that one's done. And the blame factor is slipping away when we don't blame the other. And we see them do something that would have caused a problem. We recognize they've just planted a seed in their mind, if they saw it similarly, for something similar to happen to them. But oh my gosh, I showed myself an opportunity where I would have gotten upset, but I didn't. Thank you. Okay. So you'd like have this sense of of being grateful to them for doing what used to piss you off. Now it doesn't anymore, which means you can be in crowded market in a hurry, right? And it doesn't really matter whether people get in your way or not. Like it's hard to even imagine being like that. But that's the promise of these teachings. It's not to suppress our getting upset. It's to recognize suddenly, oh my gosh, those things don't upset me anymore. Other things do. All right, we'll address those. But let yourself recognize how you are changing, because you are. Okay, I've yacked through our break time. Let's take a break.
Teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the teaching. Really good, to listen to all this explaining. Just now I was imagine I am listening to a Buddha speech, like, explaining all the sutras inside. And then just now you're trying to uh explain the projections. Everything is our projections, and then I'm curious, I'm still very curious about this projection. How can it be, there's so many things out there, around my world, all are from projections. And then I was trying to imagine um how to really prove it, to see for myself. Uh I mean, this projections kind of thing. I
Right.
mean, because there's so many things out there, really a lot of things from moment to moment. So
Yeah.
through these projections, so I'm really very curious. I think this one have to do it myself, like meditation, until one day I can prove myself. That's the only
Exactly.
way, isn't it?
Right. Tu samgom. Study, contemplate, meditate, serve others, teach others, gather goodness, dedicate. It's like the answer to your question.
Oh,
Yeah, let's do the
yeah.
ACI courses.
Oh, I'm doing it a bit by bit. I'm doing it,
Yeah,
and
you
then,
cook it.
yeah.
You keep working. You keep looking for the gotcha. Look for the thing that could exist independent of your projection.
Uh-huh.
And that's what shows you, oh, no such thing. Not possible. Keep looking for the gotcha.
Okay, I try. I mean, theory wise, I think I can understand, but
Yeah.
I mean, to experience myself, I mean,
Yeah.
to see for myself, this part
Yeah.
is still
Gotta keep working on it.
okay.
So, as our deepening conviction of the empty nature and dependently originated, projected nature of existing things grows, the more clear it becomes that the suffering that we see or perceive in our world is mistaken. They use the term mistaken. It's unnecessary because it's a result of a mistake and perpetuated by a mistake. The mistake being our belief in things coming from the thing that happened the moment before. Our belief in things having their own identities and pleasantness or unpleasantness in them. All of our blaming others for our own experience is what perpetuates our interactions with others in such a way that perpetuates the selfishness that makes us do things, that makes us see other people beings do things selfishly that we don't like. So all of our distress, our own and that which we see, it's all really unnecessary. If we all just knew where things were really coming from, we would stop being selfish and unkind. We really would that fast if we could. The
I
ability to do that stuff, right? The ability to change that fast will also be projected results. So,
I'm working on that. I'm working on that,
yeah,
because theory wise, I can understand, and then when come to real life, but reduce a lot. This part really reduce a lot. Last time, I can get angry easily, but now reduce a lot. But still, there are things, when one or two things happen, so I will react to it.
I know.
So. working very hard on that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. So let's go back to class. So when we're thinking of things, sufferings as being unnecessary, we're thinking, okay, car crashes don't have to happen. Lost jobs don't have to happen. They do validly because of past seeds, but I can learn to change my seeds. But still, we think deep down the fact that when ice cream is gone, it's a suffering. Come on. I don't really want ice cream to last forever. But why can't the pleasure that ice cream seems to give then be a pleasure that opening the door gives? Like, why does pleasure have to be related to the thing that's happening? Why can't pleasure just ooze out of us and color everything that's happening? If the pleasure doesn't come from the thing, where does it come from? Right? So pleasure that ends is a suffering, and it doesn't have to. So, okay, great. But what about that pervasive suffering? That fact that because we don't understand where things really come from, we are forced into a rebirth. We age, we get sick, we die in some combination of those and are forced into another rebirth. Do we really believe that that whole process is a big mistake? That that whole process can stop? If we think that whole process stops, do we think, everything just disappears? Like that's not the accurate conclusion. Do we really believe that pervasive suffering is a big mistake? Because it is. Like it is driven by our misunderstanding of reality. And so those things are the things that get ceased. We have no aging, illness, forced rebirth once we are wisdom beings. Hard to grasp. So there are these two levels of great compassion. And then they give us three. I love this Tibetan tradition. So there's the level of great compassion that wants to free all living being from their suffering. But understanding that the way they'll free themselves from their suffering is for them to understand the marriage of karma and emptiness. That until each mind stream understands the power of their own behavior in stopping their own suffering, all that suffering won't go away. I want it to happen because I understand how it can happen, and I want everybody to know. And so I'm willing to do whatever I can do worldly to help them relieve their suffering so that they can learn about emptiness and karma. That is a bigger compassion than the compassion that says, I will bring them lunch. That's a great compassion, but not great compassion. Then we recognize that there's this other level of great compassion that recognizes, oh my gosh, whether all of their suffering that I perceive in them is my seeds. And whether I perceive them interested in karma and emptiness is my seeds. So in order for me to be able to help them learn karma and emptiness, I have to do something with my seeds to bring about the end of their suffering and to bring about their openness to learning that means I need to work on me and my seeds. So my great compassion grows into me needing to work on myself and my seeds. And it's like, wait, how is that compassionate towards them? Because their suffering's my seeds. So I want to study. I want to contemplate. I want to meditate. I'm willing to get off automatic pilot. I'm willing to adjust my habitual schedule. I'm willing to make changes in myself. And it may be that at some point, that change that we see that we need to make in order to change our seeds so that our wisdom can grow will probably involve removing ourselves to some extent from the busyness of our worldly life, that we reduce the amount of worldly distractions to fewer and fewer. We take time completely away from those big distractions from time to time, a long weekend, a 10-day, building up to a month or so trained retreat, to take that time to dive deeper into our understanding and our training. And that requires some period of time in which the things that our other close people in our lives expect from us are needing to be renegotiated and changed, right? To do that skillfully is a great goodness. To just tell your family, you know what? I need to spend an hour a day meditating, so you just take care of yourselves. I need to go away on retreat 1 weekend a month. You just take care of yourselves, right? That's not going to go over very well. But we can have this ideal in mind and work towards it by planting our seeds. But even still, there'll be people that you used to visit with regularly that just don't fit anymore. And it takes a certain amount of courage to either approach them and say, thank you very much, but I really, I don't know how you would say it. I'm not, it's not my thing anymore to go meet the girls at the best restaurant and, you know, complain about everything that's gone wrong all week. Unless we're going to use that time together to figure out where it really comes from, right? But anyway, so I think you get my idea. There can be a point in which it's your family reacts to your change with resistance, right? It's scary for someone we love to change. We don't want them to change. We love them like they are, even though we fight with them and get disappointed in them. For them to change leaves us, right, what if I don't like them when they change? Fear. And so we, the ones doing the changing, if we understand that, we can actively be reassuring at the same time as, right, we're putting some distance between our automatic reactions towards them, because that's the arena in which we're going to change. So it can be difficult, right? We step onto our spiritual path, this one in particular, and it's like we're swimming upstream. And if we don't live with us in an area where there's a sangha, a group of similar people that we support ourselves together, support each other, it's very, very difficult. And our particular sangha is, we don't have centers all over the world. We have Zoom, thank goodness. but it's not the same. So we really are like little fish swimming all by ourselves up the stream instead of having a school of fish that's all swimming together. And it's difficult. In the end, however, our practice path is unique to each of us. It is our own path. And so, in a way, to be in a situation where you're doing it on your own, it shows that you've got this great strength, that you can do it that way. Otherwise, you'd be in a circumstance where you've got 15 other practitioners close by. It's not a bad thing to be doing this as individuals. But so this next step of the great compassion is when our wisdom grows to the extent that we are really recognizing that there is no suffering that we can be aware of that's not ripening results of our own past deeds. And that when that's so clear to us, that state of heart called Laksam Namdak and our compassion arises together. That's this Chimadang Laksam Namdak, Nidun Chik. They are one thing. Our compassion and our personal responsibility for the end of that compassion arise as one emotion, one state of mind. Laksam Namdak, if you recall, is that last step before our bodhicitta in our 7-step cause and effect method. I'm personally responsible. It takes a unique and special karmic accumulation to hear a teaching that says, because everything is blank from its own side, every moment of every experience is ripening results of the experiencer's own behavior. And that means the experiencer behaving towards that experience is where that experiencer creates their future that always includes other and always includes an interaction between that experiencer and the experienced. And in that reaction is where future experience is created. When we catch that, we realize, oh, subject side interaction with object is my responsibility. I'm responsible. This subject side, me, is responsible for everything. And it takes a special being to be able to hear that and not run away saying, no way. Right? So the fact that you've heard this already a few times, right? Not from me, but from other places, and you're still here digging in, means that you have this specialness, right? You have the seeds that can at least hear that message and not run away screaming. And that's extraordinary. That's how close you are to your spontaneous, uncontrived, great compassion state of mind. Because you are thinking about, wow, what if that's true? I'm ultimately responsible. If it's true, that's heavy. But if it's true, let's do it. Right? Let's take on what we need to take on. Let's give up what we need to give up. And let's create that Buddha me and Buddha paradise emanating so that I can be what those other beings in my projections need to do it to. And that's love and compassion. I want to bring them to ultimate happiness. I'm willing to do what I need to do. I'm willing to be what they need. That's what our emanations will do. So great compassion mixed with personal responsibility, meaning my seeds, create the seeds, and everybody's happy. There's no place else others' happiness comes from than our own seeds. Yeah, but what about what they perceive themselves as? Right. That's why we set by example. We show by example. And we make the connections with others, what we perceive as others. We set the example. We teach, we share as they are open to it, and encourage them to set the example for others. Okay. So Geshe-la says it's not contradictory to say that the best way to help others is to work really hard to understand emptiness intellectually and then directly, and then use that understanding to get yourself enlightened so that you can be the perfect authority for teaching others how to do it. Because the way to reach that state is by doing those kindness deeds necessary to force that karma onto ourself. And those kind deeds are trying to remove the suffering of others and trying to give them happiness. So we're right back to worldly ways to give someone a little happiness and worldly ways to give them a little relief of suffering that we are doing with our wisdom in order to change our heart seeds, in order to change the world that is coming out of those seeds, not coming out of those seeds. Those ripening seeds are. It's a beautiful upward spiral. So we hear it again and again. Everything's my seeds ripening. Everything's my seeds ripening. And Kong Li pointed out that even as we understand that intellectually, it's like, how can that be? That little tiny detail in the brick wall. That's coming from my seeds? No, it can't be. Right? We get it on some level, but then the details, it's like, I can't understand it. Mm. So we beg for the blessings of the lamas, we heard. And then as our compassion arises, it becomes a more and more pleasurable state of mind, compassion. Instead of being unpleasant, compassion becomes more and more pleasant. And we're generating this willingness to help others on more and more subtle ways. Through which we are taking more and more personal responsibility. Which is generated out of our understanding that until I'm omniscient, I can't really know even what worldly thing to do for someone to bring them a little bit of relief or a little bit of happiness. If we were omniscient and we saw the homeless person, we wouldn't just know that they're hungry. We would know that what their body needs is, this amount of fiber and that amount of protein, and we would bring them exactly what their body needs. And we would know that their favorite flower is daisies. And so we would offer that meal with a single little daisy to bring them a little happiness. Without omniscience, we wouldn't know. Exactly. So our laksam namdak is this step before, or the step that propels us to the urging to reach omniscience, which is what shifts our wish to stop our own suffering to the bodhicitta, I want to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. That personal responsibility for becoming omniscient is what makes our bodhicitta our bodhicitta. And we don't get that until we understand the emptiness of the three spheres of every moment of our experience. So with that, Master Shantideva has wrapped up his wisdom chapter, and he moves into his final teaching, his dedication. And his whole teaching was about the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. And the Bodhisattva's way of life is learning to live according to the six perfections. And the first perfection is the perfection of giving. And there's no chapter called giving, is there? So, the punchline is he waited to talk about the perfection of giving until after he had done his perfection of giving, which was his sharing the Dharma. Remember, he did this all in one day. And when he's done, he says, now, by the power of the goodness that I've just done, may this happen, may this happen, may this happen, may this happen. We know it as dedication. He's demonstrating how our dedication is also an act of sharing. Because the difference between a prayer and a dedication is that in a prayer, we are requesting something we don't have, something that hasn't happened yet. Munlam, please bless my mind with the direct perception of emptiness. We only say that because we haven't had it yet. Please bless my mind with greater compassion because we don't think we have it yet. Noah, dedicating, is we take some seeds we've already made and we say, may those seeds planted, instead of bringing about some worldly result that ends, or even some better than worldly result that ends, I want to take those seeds and dedicate them to something higher. And in taking something I've already gained or attained or done and directing it towards some specific result, those seeds, by way of the dedication, transform that, what we call dirty good karma, into a virtue, into seeds that will actually bring about that result that we've dedicated them to. Now, maybe it's going to take them longer to do that than to give the world a result if we hadn't dedicated them. But as we get good at dedicating, the dedicating factor adds to dedicating factors. And our dedication, the power of our dedication actually gets stronger and stronger. and we start seeing worldly changes coming about as a result of the goodness of our dedication, even before we see the actual dedication results that we've asked for. So again, we've talked about expectation versus expectancy. And we dedicate our virtues, we dedicate our goodness to become a certain virtue, and then just launch it into like this or something better. Because if we're waiting for our dedication to ripen in a certain way, and it comes looking differently, we'll be thinking, oh, my dedications are never working because they're not showing up in the way that I expect. They're showing up in ways I don't expect. So you make your dedication, launch it, and let it grow. We've been taught the habit of dedication in our meditation preliminaries. It's the last preliminary is to dedicate just your preliminaries to your meditation session or to your growing wisdom or to somebody else's wisdom. And so we've got the built-in system. It just maybe didn't occur to us that we can dedicate things as we go through our day. Like anytime we actually do a vow behavior, right? Have a situation of avoiding a vow, and oh my gosh, I actually did avoid it. I did the opposite instead. We can take that and dedicate it to growing wisdom, growing our bodhicitta, to somebody else's growing their bodhicitta, right? We can dedicate. To dedicate those seeds adds power to them. And they say makes them such that those good seeds will not wear out. We can't damage them. We can't burn them off. They are put in the bank, gaining interest until they reach their fruition. So it's this special method of changing what looks like worldly karma into merit karma. And merit karma becomes the causes of our Buddhahood. So remember when we said any little thing done with bodhicitta becomes a cause of our Buddhahood. And bodhicitta is the wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. But then bodhicitta is also the word for the wisdom perceiving emptiness directly. And those two together seem to be what makes every little deed done the cause for my Buddhahood. And so we're like saying, oh, well, so until I have that, every little deed is not the cause for my Buddhahood. But here's a shortcut. If we dedicate those every little deeds that we've done with our aspiring bodhicitta to our actual bodhicitta, those little deeds become the seeds for our actual bodhicitta, which make every little deed the cause for our Buddhahood. Do you see? So it's like this little trick. Teach yourself to dedicate and then remind yourself to dedicate. And Geshe once did this beautiful thing. He said, sit down with yourself, your altar, and your holy being, and make a deal with them. Say, look, I understand the power of dedication. And the power of dedication means when I've done a kindness deed on purpose with wisdom, with bodhicitta, I want that deed to go to making a world in which I'm a Buddha in Buddha paradise, being what will bring every being to their Buddha paradise. And that's what I mean by dedication. But that's too long to say every time I finish doing the dishes with bodhicitta in my mind. So I'm going to make you a deal. Every time I dedicate, that's what I mean by my dedication, but I'm just going to pull on my left ear. So every time I pull on my left ear, you, holy being, and my mind know that I've just dedicated what I just did. Blah, 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 blah. And I don't have to say all that anymore. I just have to remember to pull on my left ear. Deal? See them go, gotcha. But then our task is to remember, right? Dedicate, dedicate. Not things that you want to do. Do something and dedicate it, right? And you've made the deal. My own experience was it was really, really effective. But from time to time, I had to go back and remind myself, what do I mean? Like I had my own, I don't do this one. I do something else. But you find your own, okay? And then it's your secret message to your holy being. And it's really useful. So dedicating prevents the goodness of that deed from wearing out. Dedicating that deed makes that deed be a cause for your Buddhahood someday. Dedicating that deed adds to the power of previous dedications, which increases the power of our future dedications, right? So it increases our ability to have this awareness of emptiness, karma, emptiness, karma, emptiness, karma, so that our compassion and love towards others color our mind as we're interacting with others, growing that into a spontaneous state of heart. Because every interaction with others is an opportunity to do a deed that we get to dedicate. And they call that the blissful path to bliss. Because when we do have this state of understanding, it really is enjoyable. The state is enjoyable, regardless of what's going on around us. Instead of being in constant react mode, this is good, this is bad, I want this, I don't want that. You're stepping into your day saying, right, this is where I interact with others in a way that I can dedicate towards Buddhahood for everybody. And it doesn't really matter what those circumstances are. Geshe-la says dedication is like making investments in your future. Don't waste your kind deeds. Turn them into virtues by dedicating them. So he says we don't have to think of ourselves as ordinary anymore. Our understanding of the emptiness of ourselves and others and interaction between is growing big enough to recognize that we do have the power to be changing ourselves and our world through our day-to-day interactions. What kind of interactions? Keep your vows, check your vows, learn your vows. Avoid those circumstances that the vows say to avoid. Turn them around over into the positive. Train ourselves to do the positive, and it's easy to avoid the negative ones. And use them as your choice-making guidelines. And enjoy yourself while you're doing it. So in the end, he says he's dedicating the virtue of teaching this material with others, sharing it with others. He's dedicating it to things like, may the goodness that I've just done become the rain that pours down upon the house and puts the fire out. May it become that which stops the crushing. He goes through all the different kinds of house. He goes through the different kinds of hungry ghosts. Says, may the goodness of what I've done, may this happen, may that happen. Bringing all beings to freedom from suffering. And in the end, he says, may I dedicate that these teachings stay in the world for a very, very long time as the one and only medicine to stop the suffering of all living kind. Emphasizing that this worldview of the marriage of emptiness and karma triggering our great compassion is what will lead all beings to the morality that grows wisdom. And that's the healing necessary. The cause of all sickness, not just health, the cause of all that's wrong is the ignorance, the misunderstanding of karma and emptiness. The misunderstanding that there's no nature of anything but the way we are experiencing it. And that's what makes it real. And that's what makes it painful or not. And that's why our interaction with it either burns it off or replants it. So the one and only medicine in the world is this growing wisdom, this worldview. Very, very lastly, then, he says, Daki gyu la gewe chok, darward zepe gewe shenyen ladak chakselo. Ladak chakselo says, I bow down to. In the end, he bows down to his holy gewe shenyen. Gewe shenyen means his spiritual guide. It means Kalyana Mitra in Sanskrit. There it is. Shenyan and Kalyana Mitra. I prostrate to my good root Lama, requesting that all their goodness spread throughout my heart. This extraordinary guy who's taught this all in one afternoon and then given all the goodness away says, I owe it all to my precious holy being. Telling us he's still relying on this connection with the being who for him is that one who's made of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. You'll see in the reading that he says who his holy Lama is. It's Manjushri. So he's made this direct connection with this precious holy being, his personal guide, and relies on that personal guide for everything. Implying to me that you get this connection with your holy being, whether they are embodied or not embodied, and you reach that point where you can ask them a question and hear an answer, get her an answer. Whether you hear it in words of your language or get it in a knowing or get it in the circumstance that comes soon thereafter, like as a message, we get this connection and then we rely upon that connection. And it's a connection that crosses lifetimes, passes lifetimes. So we learned early the importance of finding our root teacher, recognizing what that root teacher really is, checking out their apparent qualities to make sure that we, worldly wise, conventionally wise, trust that they know what we need. And then sooner or later, we reach this conviction that they are a manifestation of this omniscient love, compassion, there to guide us and available to us in every moment. And it's a big step from our worldly state of mind, worldly state of heart, where we've grown up learning how to be totally independent and free thinkers and make our own decisions. And now it's like recognizing, no, I just want them to tell me what to do. After resisting my parents telling me what to do for a whole lifetime, now it's like, oh, just tell me, don't make me work so hard. And probably if I could really hear them, they'd be saying, my holy being would be saying, I've been telling you all along, you just weren't listening. So it's fun. It's fun to grow this connection. And Master Shantideva is saying we never outgrow it, right? He seems like a really, really wisdom guy. He doesn't need a teacher. He is the teacher. No, still relying on that precious holy being. Geshe says, every one of us has our own Shinyan, waiting for us to recognize them, waiting for us to meet them, waiting for us to know them. So there you go. Guide to the master, guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. It's extraordinary goodness that we've finished this without major disasters for any of us. Maybe in our outer world, there have been more than one, but here we still are. And that's a great, great goodness. Truly, not many beings have the goodness ripening to receive teachings on that whole book. Right? A chapter here from His Holiness, a chapter there from somebody else. But all of it together over, what has it been? 9 months? It's your extraordinary goodness. So please be pleased with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please, please stay close. Ask them even to declare themselves to you if they haven't already. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom, and may it be so. All right, well done. Next class, you'll teach me. Have fun.
Thank you,
Okay.
teacher, for
You're
your wonderful
welcome.
teaching.
Thank you.
My
Thank you
great
so much.
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
Thank you for the
Have a nice
opportunity.
day.
Thank you for
Thank you
teaching.
all.
See
Bye.
you
Stay.
Friday
Stay.
morning.
Please stay.
Thank you so much.
Love
Okay.
you.
Love you. Bye-bye. Okay. And meeting.